focus tonight, and really I'll continue on because I doubt we'll finish it all, is really looking at attributes of Joshua's leadership, things that he did, and then thinking about what kind of leadership that was exhibiting. But I also listed here that I want to run through very quickly 14 of Maxwell's 21 irrefutable laws of leadership. It's not like the other 7 aren't important, but these are the ones that really resonated with me and I felt I wanted to get on the table. We talked last week about the law of the lid, that basic principle that those who are following a leader can only rise to the level that the leader has trained themselves to be a leader. So if you are a leader, your training, your learning to be a leader limits the people who are following you to the extent that you do not continue to progress in your skills as a leader. So the law of the lid, you are the lid as a leader. Law of influence, leadership's about influence, nothing more, nothing less. We talked about positional leadership, leadership by influence, leadership by initiative, but nevertheless it always requires you to have relationship with those you are trying to lead in any capacity. Law of navigation, as a leader you must chart the course. You must be intentional in doing so and must articulate the course. Now, think in terms of also, this is not just in a job setting, it's not just in a church setting, though it is, it's also in your family setting. Think about how these types of leadership principles play out as you as a leader of the family. Articulating the course. There's Stafford North, who some of you know at Oklahoma Christian. He has the energy of anyone. He's Caleb. I mean, he's 85 or something years old, but he can still take the mountain. I mean, he's just, I don't know where he gets his energy level. But he has something that he does with his family. Be there. Be there. He says that to his family. When they have a family photo, he has them hold up their thumb. Be there. Of course, he's talking about be there in heaven with me when I'm there. Be there. So it's very succinct. He has charted the course for his family. This is where we're going. This is what we want to become. An interesting aspect of that is he decided he was going to have a license plate made that said that. The problem is, it also says bet here. So he has a little sticky that he put after the E to make it clear it's be there. But yeah, it's not bet here. But the point is, he is so much about showing that path, that navigation to his family, that he is intentional and he articulates it. So are we doing that as family leaders? The law of addition, leadership isn't about how far we advance ourselves, but how far we advance others, how we add to others. Every leader is either subtracting or adding. Again, this is also true as a father, a husband. We're either subtracting or adding. Leaders who subtract usually do so unintentionally. They don't realize they're subtracting because they haven't thought through it. Leaders that add do so intentionally. They think intentionally about how they can add to and allow others to advance. The law of solid ground, absolutely crucial. The effective leaders exhibit ethics, honesty, and integrity. They are, as Edwin Friedman says, they are a non-anxious presence. A non-anxious presence. They are solid ground that people can rely on. When everybody else is going to pieces, they are solid ground. They have an ethical standing. They have honesty, integrity, non-anxious presence. Their trust is the key. It's not only trust in believing what they say is true, but trust in their ability to lead and trust in how the leader will react to certain situations. I guarantee you in my office place, people know what my answer is going to be before they ask. So they know the guiding principles I have. And so when a question comes to me, they really know what I'm likely to say. And leaders should be that way. You should be predictable in the sense that people know where you stand, what your reaction is going to be to certain situations because they know what your guiding principles are. Same point as a parent.
Don, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Did I hear you say Milton Friedman?
No, Edward Edwin Friedman.
Because I thought you were the one that said that.
No.
You're quoting somebody else.
Yeah, I'm quoting somebody else. Yeah.
Edwin Friedman.
Friedman. Failure of Nerve is the book. No, I did not come up with that, but I have adopted it as an extremely important point. Law of connection. You must touch people's hearts in relationship before they will follow you. Law of empowerment. Only secure leaders are able to give power to others and allow them to exercise it without micromanaging them. The law of the big picture, having a greater mission in mind at all times and the ability to articulate that mission, that vision, that plan. Leaders are stewards of the vision. They're always keeping the vision in mind. Law of buy-in. Those who follow must buy into the leader, and then they can buy into the plan. Law of priorities. A leader must develop and consistently maintain and articulate a clear picture of priorities. What are your priorities? What are your key priorities? And continuing to emphasize those priorities. Law of sacrifice. Leadership is about sacrifice for a greater good. The law of timing. Taking action at the right time. Balancing between a knee-jerk, ready, fire, aim, and paralysis by analysis. Somewhere in between. One of the things I say often, talk about, is the live frog principle. If your assigned task is to eat a live frog, don't stare at it too long. There are things that need to get done, and they're not pleasant. You can procrastinate, you can delay, you can also overanalyze. There are times you have to make a move. At the same time, you don't just knee-jerk into that move. There is a role for analysis and reflection before taking action. Law of multiplication. Develop yourselves, develop your team, develop leaders. To add growth, lead followers. To multiply, lead leaders. The goal of any leader ought to be developing leaders who can then lead, besides you leading. So, and then the law of legacy, planning for your departure. If it's a job, it's planning for your own retirement, your own departure. But if it's in the family, it is planning for a time when you're not going to be there. How do you leave that legacy to your children and grandchildren? So, those are some of Maxwell's keys. So let's look at some situations that Joshua is in. And again, I think in each of these, reflect on how they play out in your family. They're written from a business perspective, but thankfully Maxwell is a Christian himself, so he also thinks in terms of how these things play out in terms of your faith walk and your family walk. So let's turn first to Joshua 1, and I should have added 10 and 11. Let's see what's going on here. Somebody read Joshua 1, 10 and 11.
Then Joshua commanded the officers of the people, saying, pass through the midst of the camp and command the people, saying, perhaps you victuals, for within 3 days ye are to pass over the Jordan, to go into the possess the land which Jehovah your God has given to you.
What, victuals? Is that King KJV?
That's the word that was here, and I was Joshua 1:10.
NIV says, get your provisions ready.
Prepare you victuals, V-I-C.
Prepare you victuals, okay. Get your provisions ready. 3 days from now, you're going to cross the Jordan. So,
I've seen that word.
I know. What has Joshua just done in this?
What's the question again?
What has Joshua done in this? From a leadership perspective, what has Joshua just done?
He told them the plans.
Told him the plan. So he had a game plan that he has articulated to them.
He trusted them to do it.
He trusted them to do it. So who did he trust?
Officers.
The officers. He had some guys that he was delegating this authority to go do this. So, had a plan, he articulated the plan, delegated to people to implement it, and expected they were going to do that. So he empowered, law of empowerment. He gave them a big picture to some degree. He certainly gave them the navigation of the course they were about to choose. Okay, how about Joshua 1:12? Right, keep going on down. 12. through 15.
But to the Reubenites, the Gadites, and the half-tribe of Manasseh, Joshua said, remember the covenant that Moses, the servant of the Lord, gave you after he said, the Lord your God will give you the rest by giving you this land. Your wives, your children, your livestock may stay in the land that Moses gave you east of the Jordan, but all your fighting men ready for battle must cross over ahead of the Israelites. You are to help them until the Lord gives them rest as he has done for you, and until they too have taken possession of the land that the Lord your God has given them. And after that, you may go back and occupy your own land, which Moses, the servant of the Lord, gave you east of the Jordan toward the sea.
Okay, so same point. From a leadership perspective, what's Joshua doing here?
He's going back and saying, this is what God promised you. So he's-
Right, so he's reminding them,
Reminding them,
yeah, of, hey, wait a minute, here's the big picture, right? Here's the big picture.
this is why we're doing it.
This is why we're doing it. So he reminded them of the big picture.
Plus, he's reminding them of their previous leader.
He's reminding them of their previous leader. He is talking about those who have come before and drawing out and emphasizing that. So he's not taking all the glory on himself. He is absolutely talking about that. So that's a key element in every case. I mean, in times of leadership where you're leading people, you need to be pointing back to people who have gone before, people who have done something that you're wanting to continue on. What else has he done here?
Give them the live frog.
He's giving them a live frog. Time to go, man.
But it's also unpleasant for those two tribes to have to go do what they do.
Yeah, they're not, that's right. This is not a task that would be pleasant. They have their land, and they're being said, no, you can't go there yet. And it's going to be a while before you can go there. Did he just say, this is it, do it? What else did he do in this dialogue?
He was divvying up each section.
He was, but he was making a case for it, right?
Okay.
He was making a case for one. So he was gaining their buy-in, even though he was telling them what to do, he really wasn't coming out and saying, do this. He was going, this is the situation, folks. Moses did this. He's promised you this land. Remember the command. This is the right thing to do, and he's kind of convincing them that this is the right thing to do, and then he's saying, we want you to do this. So it wasn't just a blatant order that he gave. He really made the case for it before he gave it, which is a great example here of obtaining the buy-in of the people for what they're about to have to do that is not a pleasant thing to do. He didn't just decide it for them.
He's also avoiding a whole lot of future problems by getting their buy-in now.
Yes.
And making the whole problem clear. He's avoiding a whole lot of things that are going to happen in the future.
So what kind of things is he avoiding by doing the future things that could happen?
Well, we know one of the things that did happen is they got accused of not wanting to worship at the temple.
Right.
And so already the Jordan River is going to be the split in the country.
Right.
And he's trying to eliminate that right now. Like, you go do this now, and everything's fair.
Right.
Everything's good. Just the fact you're on the east side of the Jordan is not a problem.
That's right. And it's okay for you to kind of do your own thing over there because you're going to be over there.
That's right.
Plus, you've sacrificed for these other people, and they shouldn't forget that. Okay, Joshua 3:2-4.
After 3 days, the officers went throughout the camp, giving orders to the people. When you see the ark of the covenant of the Lord your God, and the Levitical priests carrying it, you are to move out from your positions and follow it. Then you will know which way to go, since you have never been this way before. But keep a distance of about 2,000 cubits between you and the ark. Do not go near it.
Go ahead and read 5.
Joshua told the people, consecrate yourselves, for tomorrow the Lord will do amazing things among you.
Okay, so what is Joshua doing from a leadership standpoint here? What's he doing?
Well, he's kind of showing more of the plan.
Yeah.
If Joshua keeled over and died,
Right.
they would still know what to do.
Know what to do next. So that's important.
He's also telling them to keep their distance, because if you touch the ark, you're gonna get zapped.
So he's warning them of
Yeah.
things that could go wrong.
Yeah.
He's also telling them to focus, look ahead. There is the ark of the Lord.
That's right. So he's pointing at the future, at what they should be looking at and following going forward. So that would be God, the principles surrounding that, the law of Moses that's in there, that's in the ark. He's saying it's going before you. And, oh, by the way, keep your distance, because it doesn't turn out very well if you touch it.
It's a transfer too, because before this, it was when the cloud moved that they were to move out.
Mhm.
So apparently, this is the last time the cloud has quit. And so they've been used to following the cloud. Now they don't have that to follow anymore. So he's telling them, basically, you've got a new thing to follow, at least at this point in time.
So he's managing change.
Yeah.
He's managing change. And it's a significant change. These people have been wandering in the desert. They've been following a cloud or fire. And suddenly, that's not happening. And they have to follow there's a new process going on now. There's a new direction they're going to have to
Don,
do.
it's interesting because they were following the cloud. Now, 40 years they've been doing this.
Yeah,
And now then it says, then you will know which way to go since you have never been this way before.
right,
So this is all brand new for them.
right.
You've never been this way, so
Yeah.
this is all brand new.
Right.
So
Can I ask you a question real quick?
Yeah.
They've been following the cloud for 40 years,
Yeah,
so it's been leading them in the wilderness?
all the way around. Yeah.
I
All the
don't think
time.
I remembered that. I thought that was, I
I
thought
just
they
kept
just
on every day.
Okay, so
Like
he
9
is
days.
managing.
And not, huh?
You did like a 9 days walk from Egypt to.
Yeah, it's not very far. They just wandered around.
So he is managing change, because this is a transition to, God's holding you by the hand, you just follow this, now you're gonna follow the law.
Yeah.
Into a place. It's metaphorical almost.
And even though they were wandering in the desert, which was kind of lost, sort of, it was comfortable, right? I mean, they'd been there, they'd done it. That's the
But they weren't wandering, right? Because they were being led by.
Sure, they're being led, but I mean, the whole point is they've been in this,
Right, yeah.
you know, they haven't been really going anywhere.
Right.
They've been in the desert, the known, the comfortable known, you know, even though it might have been miserable, it was still the known misery with people. And suddenly, I'm about to take you where you've never been before. And so he's preparing them for a change, and he's preparing them for going somewhere they've never been. And so what does he tell them? He says, first of all, he points to the ark. He says, remember, God designed this thing, and we built it by his directions, and the law of Moses is in there. And God is going to be with us, so that's one comfort you have. Secondly, you got to know where you need to go, because you're going to follow them. That's where you're going. You haven't been there before, trust us, follow. Then he says, consecrate yourself. Now this is before the circumcision, so this is something else. Consecrate yourself. Basically, get yourself ready in the inside for this change that's about to take place. And then he says, wow, that last phrase, for tomorrow the Lord will do amazing things among you. He's pointing to what God is going to do next. Positive attitude about what's going to happen next. Leaders need to exhibit that. Whatever the circumstance is, we're going to be able to get through this, and we're going to be able to go in this direction. We're going to be able to accomplish, and great things are going to happen. Let's charge up that hill, whatever it is. That is that leadership attribute that we need to exhibit, you know, wherever we are. That we believe that great things are going to happen. We believe that God is going to cause great things to happen if we follow him. So as leaders of our family, we need to be talking about how, look, just wait for what God is going to do in our midst. Joshua 4:4-7.
So Joshua called together the 12 men he had appointed from the Israelites, one from each tribe, and he said to them, "Go over before the ark of the Lord your God into the middle of the Jordan. Each of you is to take up a stone on his shoulder according to the number of the tribes of the Israelites, to serve as a sign among you. In the future, when your children ask, 'What do these stones mean?' tell them that the flow of the Jordan was cut off before the ark of the covenant of the Lord."
What did Joshua just do from a leadership perspective right there?
A legacy.
Legacy. That's an absolute follow-through on the law of legacy. He is preparing future generations to remember and know what just happened. He's intentionally doing that. We have that opportunity as leaders of our family. We have that opportunity as leaders in business, leaders in the church, to say, here's a symbol, whatever it is, of where God has taken us. I think it's an important thing. I mean, one of the things that we do when we go to Israel is we get smooth stones out of the creek where David got the stones. Now, I'm convinced they come with a backhaul truck, or dump truck, and dump new ones in every day, probably, because everybody's coming through and getting their 5 stones. But I don't care. It came from that. Sometimes I've given that to someone who's gone through a difficult time, to remember what God can do in slaying their giant. There are things in our lives when we face challenging things that can symbolize God's deliverance. Walt, what you've been delivered through in your health situation, I suspect you have some things that symbolize that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And you're able to not only remind yourself, but in the law of legacy, you're able to point to your kids and grandkids.
Well, Don, the group doesn't know the story, but the story about Matt when he was 7,
Yes.
sleeping with a bat, that T-ball bat is next to my bed, leaning up against the wall. So when I lay my head down, I see it.
Right.
It's been there ever since he was 7. You know.
So the encouragement would be, as leaders, whatever position you're in, leaders, is think about that. If there's some significant thing you've been through, particularly as a family or as a business or a church or whatever it is, have something that can be set up that is out there and a constant reminder to everyone who walks through that house what that is, what happened. And as the kids get older, you can say, they may ask, what is that? Well, let me tell you what that is. That was the purpose of these stones being put up, was precisely to bring out that question. And so in this area of legacy, it also helps for the big picture. You're showing the big picture of what God's doing. Have those things that remind people what it is that you're about and what it is that God has done in your life today.
So
Chuck, go ahead.
one of the things that hits me with that analogy is that it's important for us to set up these memorials that other people can see.
Yes.
It's not just for us to see it. It's important for the people that we lead and the people that they lead to be able to see this memorial to, this thing that God has done for us.
In my office, there's a comment that I've made in the past. What do you know if you see a turtle on a fence post? Well, it didn't get there by itself, right? And I said, I'm the turtle on the fence post. Well, my good brother Tom McLeod went out and took a picture of a turtle on a fence post and had it framed and gave it to me. That is in my office. And people come in and say, what's that? And I'm able to say, this is what it is. I got where I am not on my own. And that's why you know that. So there are things like that, you're right, where other people can ask, what's that? What does that represent? Why do you have that? And it's a great opportunity to start conversation. You know, that one has led to a lot of discussions.
Tom McLeod, you mentioned him. I used to office with him, and he would hand out his business cards, and on the back of his business cards, he had the two of clubs printed. And people would ask him about it, and there was a conversation started. He was like, well, you know, when you play spades, the two of clubs is it's the lowest card, and that's me. But sometimes two of spades wins, the two of clubs wins the hand. So Tom's notorious for those sort of things.
Yeah. So I think symbolism is important. Symbolism is important. You know, we don't have crucifixes that we bow down to, and we don't get into to that sort of thing as a fellowship. But we kind of have an allergy to that. But that doesn't mean that symbols don't have their place. Symbols have their place. And their place is to remind yourself, to remind others, and to elicit questions, particularly from your own family, but from others. What is that? So I would encourage, if you don't have such a thing, to think back through your life. Some key moments, and what might represent that key moment. And put something tangible out there as a symbol of that others can see. And if you have one of those, maybe you need to make it more conspicuous so that others can see it as well. Okay, Joshua 5.
I'll read it. It's one of the most painful
Yes,
verses in the Bible.
it is. So I thought it'd be great if you read
At
it.
that time, the Lord said to Joshua, make flint knives and circumcise the Israelites again. So Joshua made flint knives and circumcised the Israelites at Gibeah.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
What is that about, Don?
Well, it's interesting because you say, all right, what is it from a leadership standpoint that's going on there? It is the live fraud. That needed to get done. And it was not going to be pleasant. And Joshua knew that to be what God intended the men to be, they needed to be circumcised. That was the promise to Abraham. They had failed to do that in the desert, and he needed to catch them up in that compliance with the law of Moses. He believed, and he's probably right, that God would not have blessed them had they not done that. I mean, I suspect that that was a requirement of God in how he was going to deal with them. And he finally said, okay, folks, it's time. We need to do this, and this isn't fun. We need to get it done.
You know, it says in verse 9, I have rolled away the reproach of Egypt from you.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, this is like hitting the do-over button.
Yeah.
You're cleansed figuratively and in God's eyes.
So, are there times as a leader that we need to kind of get a fresh start going? Sometimes in business that's tough. That may mean you have to change out people. Obviously, in a family, you hope that's not the answer. But there still can be tough things that have to be done in a restart. Sometimes it's your own self admitting that there's some things you should have done that you're now going to do. We haven't been doing what we need to be doing as a family spiritually. We're going to start that now and get it going. It does speak to the fact that as a leader, there's always that opportunity to restart, to begin anew, to set things right that needed to have been taken care of. But it's that leader's call to make that happen, and not just let things continue to drift, but to say, wait a minute, there are things we haven't done that we need to do. And they're going to be hard, but we're going to do them. That's the toughness of leadership that's required. It's involved sacrifice, the law of sacrifice, because you may get pushback when you make those tough calls, and that's not any fun. It is talking about priorities, saying this is a priority we need to take care of, and we can't put it off any longer. It's an element of the law of solid ground because it's being honest about the current situation and facing a tough situation that needs to be faced. So those are all going on here where Joshua has done this, as you well pointed out, as a fresh start. To take care of things that haven't been taken care of, to get things back where they need to be, and put them on the road they need to be.
It's also buy-in,
Yeah.
because Joshua would have heard of Moses not doing this. Remember when Moses from the burning bush went into Egypt?
Yeah.
And then God was going to kill him?
Yeah.
And then Zipporah circumcised their son and put the foreskin at Moses' feet, and God relented from killing him.
Right.
You would have heard that story and go, Moses wasn't prepared to do that.
Right.
I'm prepared to do that. And then the buy-in of the followers.
Yes.
I don't care what kind of leader you are. You're telling me to do that, I'm going to have second thoughts.
Yeah.
And they did. And that's impressive to me that they followed that well. And I love Gebeth. You know what Gebeth means in Hebrew? It's really funny. It means hill of foreskins. That's what it means.
That's fantastic. How would you like to live on that hill? It's the name of a new neighborhood.
New neighborhood.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. So, yeah. Now, granted, this is something that God told Joshua to do. I mean, he knew that. But at the same time, Joshua then had to go tell the people. And they had to buy into him as a leader, and they had to be willing to follow him. And he says, this is why he did so. All those came out of Egypt, all the men of military age died in the wilderness. It's pretty clear he's probably explaining this to them too. This isn't quoting Joshua, but you have to believe that this is in here because he has been explaining to them why this is crucial. And so he's not just saying do it, he's, once again, explaining why, which is crucial to any leadership. See how many we're going to get through tonight. Maybe 5 minutes till class is over. Let's go to Joshua 7:6.
Then Joshua tore his clothes and fell face down to the ground before the ark of the Lord, remaining there till evening. The elders of Israel did the same and sprinkled dust on their heads.
Okay, so this is what situation that's going on. If you look at the heading of the chapter.
They could have taken some of the prized
Right.
articles from Jericho when they were told,
Don't do
leave
that.
everything alone.
And then God's holding this against the entire nation, and they're defeated when they go out to battle, and they're going, well, what went wrong? And the answer was there's sin in the camp. And so, but his reaction here, what's going on from a leadership standpoint and his reaction here?
Humility.
There's a lot of humility going on.
We have repentance,
There's repentance going on for something he personally didn't do,
that he's in charge.
but he's in charge. Buck stops here.
Yeah.
So he acknowledged that it was his responsibility even if he didn't do it. That's a big deal in leadership, right?
You should know.
Buck stops here. Can't pass it off on anybody else. Happens under your watch. It's your problem to solve. Now again, that's true in any leadership position you're in, including the home. No passing it off. So that is in my view, a big part of the solid ground. There is ethical behavior going on here by Joshua. He is practicing solid ethics here by saying the buck stops with the leader. And he's not trying to weasel out of the situation. He goes straight to his knees, tears his clothes, and then guess what happens with the people who are next under him in leadership? They do the same thing. So he set a culture here that says you admit your mistakes, you take ownership of them, and then you deal with them. Crucial to any leader. And this is a great example of that, and I believe it does fit under the development of the heading of solid ground. But it also, what do you think this did in terms of his connection with the people? He didn't just point the finger at Achan or you all messed up, obviously. You know, God's against us. I didn't do anything. You all messed up. No, I have to believe that this deepened his connection, his relationship with the people. Because they saw him not as someone who was trying to pass the blame off on everybody else, but he was willing to accept his responsibility. And when leaders don't do that, they break that relationship. They break that principle of solid ground. People do not view them with honesty and ethics and integrity.
I think that's probably one of the things that Achan witnessed and then was willing to step up himself and finally say, okay.
Yeah, I would have ended that story differently. Yes, I admit it. I'm really sorry. Okay, you get a pass, right? No, that's not what happened. Yeah. But he did. I think the fact that he did cause Achan to come clean, because he showed that integrity in himself. Okay, I think I'm going to end that tonight. We're right at the end.
Hey, Don, there was probably one other law that Dale and I learned when we went to hear John Maxwell at the First Baptist Church in Moore, Oklahoma. Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
And we're talking about the law of sacrifice. Leadership is about sacrifice for the greater good. One of the elders, there was all of us from different churches all over Oklahoma was there listening to John. We got to ask him questions, and one of the elders said, well, what do you do about a member that's just irate, just griping, and everything, just going off? And he goes, I think you call it the law of the elder. He said basically, just before you slap him, you say, in the name of Jesus. Everybody just went crazy. Because I think as an elder, as some of us have been elders, we gotta appreciate that. Well,
that's
you gotta say in the name of Jesus.
Yeah. Well, the whole book, Failure of Nerve, is about that too. And he actually counseled he passed away, but he counseled the churches.
Yeah.
And that's where you get the live frog principle. He didn't talk about that. Is that where too often leadership is unwilling to address a problem.
Right.
So I went ahead and looked him up.
Yeah.
And put it in my journal. And if you're at the end,
I am.
okay, let me read to you what he says. And it's called self-differentiated leadership. The capacity to separate oneself from surrounding emotional processes.
Right.
The capacity to obtain clarity about one's principles and vision. The willingness to be exposed and be vulnerable. Persistence in the face of inertial resistance. And the self-regulation of emotions in the face of reactive sabotage.
Yep. That's where the non-anxious presence comes in. Yeah. It's a great book. It's a tough one. It basically talks about, this is totally off, talks about the fact that there are, and you can agree or disagree with this, but he's basically saying in organizations that there are viruses.
There are viruses?
Virus. A virus does not add anything, they only absorb and take.
Sure.
And if you have no choice but to get them out of your organism or they will destroy the organism.
Exactly.
And he gives an example, is that, you know, because he's very much down on empathy, which I find interesting.
Right.
But he gives this example, he says, okay, so the antibodies within your body find a cancer cell, and they say, okay guys, you need to destroy that cancer cell. And I'll be back in a while. Comes back, and the cancer cell's there. In fact, it's grown. He said, well, I thought you were supposed to get rid of it. I said, well, it was kind of lonely, and, you know, it didn't have any friends, so we wanted to kind of, and we knew it had some problems, so we wanted to help it. And, you know, cancer cell's done this. Suggesting if someone truly has that kind of attitude, you must take action. And that's true in church. It's true in business. It's even to some degree true in a family where you have to set boundaries and tough love. And the failure of nerve principle is leadership fails so often because they don't have the nerve to take the actions necessary that need to be taken. Now, he probably goes maybe too far that direction because there is a bit more room for grace, I think, but he does make a great point in that. And I think this Achan situation is a good one.
Well, it's brutal what happened, because everybody in Achan's family gets killed,
Yeah.
burned up,
Yeah.
including all the loot that they
Yeah.
It's awful.
It was awful, but
So they eradicated, I mean, if you
Yeah.
had an older son watching dad and agreed with dad, they basically eliminated.
I know, tough. But leadership requires tough action. Yeah. See you next week. We'll start out with